And this lady is managing director of International Monetary Fund, okay, Christine Lagarde. And who is this gentleman? And this gentleman is the Greek Prime Minister, Lucas Papadimos. And I have no problem with Greek or Greece. But then I think this picture is quite symbolic in describing the situation of North Korea in global community. So for example, IMF is symbolic of international community, and on the right-hand side, and that gentleman is the kind of symbol of a country in trouble. So it seems like the international community is blaming North Korea. So why are you doing this all the time? Why did you do that? Why did you launch this missile over Japan at this time? And why did you attack South Korean vessel or subsequent artillery barrage on Yeonpyeong Island? And also, and this kind of military provocation is threatening by all means. But the North Koreans are also known as its idiosyncratic behavior. So as Dr. Lee mentioned, and Kim Jong-il's idiosyncratic lifestyle, and he's the rich and famous, really. So he was known to consume 800 bottles of whiskey I have never seen in my whole life. So his lifestyle and his idiosyncratic, and his the eccentric lifestyle and has become the butt of joke in the US media. And I have a slide for that. Have you seen this before? Yeah, who's this guy? And this guy's Bobby Lee. And have you seen Bobby Lee impersonating Kim Jong-un? And he was pretty good, and he's very obnoxious. But this is where North Korea stands these days. Well, and having said this, and I'm going to present some statistics. And all interesting stories and exciting stories always begin with the numbers. So we're going to see lots of numbers and big numbers today. Okay, and all the numbers in this talk are from three sources. First, World Bank. Second, Statistics Korea, which is comparable to Census Bureau in the United States, and also data released by Korean government. So I have all this data set. So in the first column, I have the categories. In the second column, I have Republic of Korea data, and then this column, and BPRK, North Korea data, and the last column is the ratio between South and North Korea. So population-wise, and we have about twice, South Korean population is about twice as big as North Korean. And when it comes to GNI, so GNI stands for Gross National Income. And I also heard that economics is one of the most popular major in the Brown, so you probably have heard of GNI. And GNI is defined as the sum of a GDP and income flow of a factor income abroad. Right? So this is comparable to GDP. And this is comparable to GDP. So when it comes to GDP, when it comes to GNI, and North Korea is very small, so the South Korea is about 40 times as big, and when it comes to GNI per capita, per person, and then South Korea is 20 times richer. So which means that every $100 a South Korean is making, and the North Koreans are making only $5. So that's a telling example, 5 versus $100. And economic growth in 2010 at 6.2 and 0.5%, so we can't even compare because one is positive number, the other is negative number. And export-import trade, and all these small numbers, well, in North Korea, indicates that North Korea is such a small and closed economy. And the only exception is in the bottom two rows. And surprisingly, the railway length, it's longer in North Korea, and an iron ore. So that's one of the natural resources. And North Korea has a lot more. And this trend was not limited to 2010. So in the next 3 slides, and I'm going to show the time trends of the GNI and the GNI per capita and economic growth. So here, and that's the GNI, gross national income, and from 1990 to 2010. So as you can see, and there is a huge difference. and this uniformly very small number. And in South Korea went through some difficult times, but it doesn't look that bad. Well, it's okay. And also, this is the statistics from World Bank. And in 2010, and South Korea stands at 14th place, and the GDP, nominal GDP was almost $1 trillion. And I think this is not a bad performance for a small country and who was completely destroyed during the Korean War. So in about half a century, and then Korea was able to stand this high. And GNI per capita per person, and we have and also similar comparable the pattern in North Korea, and that is consistently very low in South Korea, and despite the difficult the peaks here and there, but it's doing okay. And when it comes to economic growth, and we have some interesting patterns. So this pattern, this is 0% line. Okay, so anything below, this is negative economic growth, and anything above, that's the positive economic growth. So right here, and all these red dots, and that's North Korea. So North Korea is going through really difficult times. And then South Korea, well, that's 1998, and during economic crisis, Asian financial crisis, and things were really bad in South Korea, but it was able to hit back. So which is good, okay? So which is very good from this to this point. So I think it's in good shape. And from the first half of Dr. Lee's the lecture, and I learned that, and in 1994, and when Kim Il-sung died, and North Korea spent lots of money to build that kind of, the special structure for Kim Il-sung. And that's 1994. So in 1994, North Korean economic growth was negative number. Okay? But still, and then they were able to spend that kind of money. And this is a telling example of North Korean regime. So now let's talk about some benefits and costs for unification. And first, benefits. And these are the benefits. So reduction in military expenditure, and this is a known amount. And by definition, military expenditure is usually classified information, so we actually don't know. And reduction of country risk. So to the extent that a country is less risky, and the foreign investors will charge lower interest rates. So that's a huge benefit. And labor supply, and a younger and a cheaper labor supply from North. And South Korea is becoming very old. So in about one generation, by 2040, and South Korean population will dwindle down to 45 million. And then last year, and the South Korean population reached the 50 million. But then 5 million, will just disappear. And revenue generation from tourism, a natural resource in North Korea. And this is really big number. So according to estimates, and the market value of North Korean natural resources is estimated to be approximately $6.3 trillion. And we may wonder, we may not realize the volume or the magnitude of this number. So $6.3 trillion is a lot of money. In the sense that US annual budget last year is only $2.5 trillion. That's the biggest economy. And South Korean annual budget in 2011 was $273 billion. So given that, and the volume of natural resources in North Korea is $6.3 trillion, and this is a huge, huge reserve and attraction for unification. And also, and we can expect cost reduction in commodity transportation. For example, when DMZ is lifted, and we can freely use it in the railroad and to reach European countries as opposed to shipping things by sea. So that's another attraction. And added value values. So basically, and then this is about short-term pain versus long-term gain. Because, and as will be presented in the next few slides, and the short-term upfront cost will be huge, but the long-term benefit will be sustained and then over the long term. So one estimate is very optimistic in the sense that, and unified Korea, in 2040, and the GDP will reach $5.5 trillion, and which will be 8th place in the global ranking, and the trade value will be approximately $3.8 trillion. Okay, now, cost of unification. So when I say it's a huge upfront cost, now how much do I need? And we have some controversies, and because there is so much uncertainty, and we estimated these costs under very severe assumptions. So let me just present that assumption, one of the important assumptions first. And the unification cost estimates the necessary cost to build a social environment in North Korea that is comparable to that of South Korea, and per capita income of North Korea is not far behind that of South Korea. So this is quite a vague statement, but this is what I found from government document. And this is in the direct translation into English. And I'm going to present the 4 scenarios. And I have minimum number, I have maximum number. And minimum number is around $347 billion, and maximum number is $3.15 trillion. And as I said, and the US 1 year's budget last year was less than $3.15 trillion. So that's a lot of money. And also, and Korea's last year's budget was $273 billion. So even this lowest number, minimum number, that $347 billion, is more than Korea's annual budget. Okay, so that's a lot of money. And we have some scenarios. So in short terms, okay, and we have a 10-year prior to unification, $7 billion through the $1.14 trillion. So for your understanding, and as of the day before yesterday, and this is the exchange rate, $1 is equivalent to $1,115, and the $1 billion is $1.1 trillion. Okay? And also 2011 budget of Korea is $273 billion. And we have a midterm scenario, and then under this scenario, unification will be attained in 2030, so in about 20 years. Okay. First scenario assumes that unification will be accomplished in 2020, and this is 2012, so 2012. So which means that unification will occur in the next 8 years. So I'm not sure how realistic this is, but that was the first scenario. In the second scenario, and the unification is going to happen in 20 years. So it's 2030 story. And according to this scenario, unification occurs as communities are halfway formed. And the total cost will be somewhere between $740 billion and $2.6 trillion. And the long-term scenario is this, and unification will occur in 30 years, so in 2040. And unification occurs when communities are completely formed. So given all that, and the before and after cost, and total cost will be somewhere between $911 billion through $3.14 trillion. And the next scenario is the best for the event of unification. It happens maybe tonight, tomorrow. So when North Korea collapses abruptly, okay, and what's going to happen to this cost? The cost will be even huger. So according to this worst or best scenario, depending on how you look at it. And if North Korea abruptly collapses without any deterioration, and the cost will be $2.14 trillion until 2040. And all in all, and the total cost with the long-term scenario is $3 trillion, and all the way to $5 trillion. As I said, and the $3 trillion and the $5.3 trillion, and that's a lot higher than the US annual budget. So given all this, a natural question arises, then how do you pay for this kind of cost? And we all know that there's going to be the roads picture down the road after unification. In order to get there, and that we have to pay this kind of cost. So how do you finance this kind of cost? So that's the natural question. And in the expectation of the emergency situation of North Korea, okay, and the Korean government is setting up a fund. So this is what we call Unification Fund. Okay. Unification Fund, and to pay for the unification cost. And the Ministry of Unification plans to accumulate at least $50 billion and through the fund. And government assesses that it will cost approximately $50 billion to $250 billion in the first year of unification. But how to finance this fund? So how to raise the money? Okay. Well, can you just print money? Well, and many of you have taken economics, so printing money without the support from real sector is the automatic inflation. So this is no, right? No, we can't do that. And also, printing this kind of money is just completely out of the question. So next way of doing this is raise tax. So raise tax from you, so it's coming from your pocket. So how to finance this fund? And government is considering unification tax and also bond, and to smooth out the burden of cross generation. So which is fair? That this idea is not very popular, okay, with somebody. Okay? This idea is probably acceptable by unification government, unification ministry, but the finance government and who's dealing with the finance matter does not like this, because the global trend is the declining tax. So this kind of high taxation is against that kind of trend. And also, the realistic concern is the tax resistance. So we are going to talk about that part in the slides. And also, deadweight loss. Okay, so deadweight loss maybe depend on the elasticity of demand and supply, but it's going to be there. Okay, so hidden cost will be a lot greater. And let's take a look at some